Well, I was going to say, I think one of the things that's a little bit fun about that story is you proved it with your own results and your own data. Jim College and Stanford University and their 26,000 hours of research proved
Right.
it. Fred Keel and his 7-year study and all those people in the peer reviewed. And I like Fred's story where it's like, we'd done 3 years and we went and had it reviewed and they said, come back with more. So we did more. He came back and said, come back with more. Like, like this like short-term project ended up being 7 years long. But it is
Right.
interesting that the three of you independently came to the same conclusions, unaffiliated with each other.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yep.
But I think another reason that I was kind of getting excited about this when you started teaching me about it a few months back was it just has a ring to kind of one of my investing heroes. So, one of the most devout followers of Warren Buffett, but applying it to the real assets world is Howard Marks at Oak Tree Capital. A lot of people will
Mm.
know.
Mhm.
And he is consistently saying like, hey, listen, I was at Chicago, University of Chicago when modern portfolio theory was getting invented and this idea that
Mm.
there's efficient markets and all that garbage. And he's like, obviously in the years since it's been proven to be wrong, right? But he says there is an aspect of it that people discount, which is if you do have this same information as everyone else, why would you think that you're going to invest so much better than others? And he says,
Right.
one thing like this, sometimes they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater on that stuff is having to look in the mirror and saying like, what do I claim that I know that others don't? Because if I
Mhm.
don't claim to know things that others don't, why do I claim I'm going to get a better return than others? Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if you read his books, which Mastering the Market Cycle has got to be one of the best ever, the most
Yeah.
important thing is endorsed by Warren Buffett, right? I mean, these are great books. You read his memos, or I just listen to him on Spotify now as his podcast. He reads them,
Mm.
which is great. But he's constantly saying, you claim you're going to get a higher rate of return. Please share with me your information edge. What do you know that's not? It's why he likes opaque markets. He does credit, he does real estate, he does things where there is more chance of having superior insight or an information edge.
Mhm.
And when you talk about what you guys do, it's like the questions nobody else asks these analysts.
Yeah.
Well, by definition, they're unlikely to have the answers that you have because they haven't been asking. You talk
Yeah.
about these little bits of coal that get shaved off that other people don't care about because they're worried about what's our return on capital employed. They're worried about these metrics, but they're
Yeah.
not asking about the metric you've got. Like it's clearly an information edge that that's a competitive advantage.
It's the basis of our the origination of the entire approach, because it was actually our inability to slice and dice known books of data and information and compete on Wall Street. Said, geez, we're never going to compete in that arena. But if we go over here and we pivot a little bit, it doesn't look like anyone's even putting a value for that. So I'll give you an example. Like, um, I was with Jim Sinegal yesterday for like 4 hours, and yeah, he's the CEO and founder of Costco, and he was on our original character strategy way back when, and he told me a story about how um, there was this warehouse that discovered the managers at this warehouse discovered that in their lease they were supposed to be paying an incremental more every year to the owner of the building. And the owner of the building never contacted him or them, the company, and said, hey, you owe us a little bit more every year. And so for 15 years, they kept on paying the same amount. And in the lease, it pointed out that the owner of the building was supposed to notify the tenant, but it never happened. And the people at that Costco warehouse came and said, look, you know, we technically should probably pay these guys. Came to corporate headquarters, ran up the flagpole, and they said, absolutely. And they dished out over $1 million in back pay without even having to do it. Right. And they, Jim told me, he said, we didn't put that cost on the warehouse. We paid it at corporate level, so it wouldn't reflect that on the numbers. But the thing, and this is the thing that stuck with me, is is that he said something like, "What would our employees think if we didn't honor that agreement? How would they feel about the company? Would they be proud to work here?" And okay, so you hear a story like that. Let's say you're a Wall Street analyst and you're doing your numbers and your analyst report, at Goldman. How do you factor in a story like that into the valuation of the company and
Well,
explain?
well,
But
it's
I'm going to give an extra 2% because of this little story here, or something like that. The valuation. It's very difficult. I mean, I don't think they've ever done it. And so to me, but if any of us were to kind of sit around and talk about it, we say, well, geez, that's some strong evidence of some pretty thoughtful leadership that's growing a very strong culture that will probably help the company prevail for years and years in advance. But how do you put that information to work? And that's the kind of information we love to find on companies, along with other bits of data. And that's the edge we hope to contribute.